Yeah, I'm really worried about alienating the Nazi audience. Like that's been we had a long talks about this.
There was a lot of.
We thought we would take a stand against Nazism.
Congress said you can't use human prisoners. These assholes aren't human.
Welcome to IGN's Roundtable discussion with the creators of Creature Commandos, the first entry in the new DC universe. James, Dean, thanks so much for taking the time to talk.
You're welcome.
So my first question for you is, what made you decide to go animated with the debut of the new DCU?
You know, I don't remember. I really don't remember. I think I just was like, kind of wanted to do something animated, and I wanted to do something with Creature Commandos for a while, and so I just started writing this thing. And we didn't have a deal, didn't have anything. I just wrote 7 episodes of this TV show, and was into it. And so then, you know, I luckily had a really great CEO in DC Studios which was me, and I greenlit my own show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, how does that work, actually?
That's
Really
how it
works. He's got 100% green light.
I do. I know. It's really
Absolute power.
Yeah.
So, how did you decide on the roster for this particular incarnation of the Commandos?
I really don't remember. I mean, part of it was from the actual Creature Commandos comics, you know, and I kind of went through and I just kind of picked out, you know, who everybody was. And I wanted to have a skeleton guy in there. And so, like, my favorite of all the skeleton guys, and there are many skeleton guys.
There are, yeah.
Is Dr. Phosphorus. And I thought he would be the most fun. And so he ended up in there.
Shish kebab.
Weasel. Well, Weasel, I mean, the whole thing is a project to, like, really bring Weasel to the masses.
Right.
Oh, man, and you really do it, too.
He does.
No spoilers.
It's surprising, but he's really, like,
he's great.
He's got layers people don't know.
It's kind of like, who's the last character you would have expected to be ported over from the Suicide Squad?
He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, you know, we got him to, I think he's agreed to do this.
So, Dean, how did you guys decide on the particular animation style? Because obviously there's been sort of, I don't want to say house style, but there's been a certain approach to DC projects.
We wanted to set it apart from, like I do Harley Quinn and Kite Man, and that's its own style. But we wanted to give it a more sort of European flair and a little darker in tone, and it has, I think, a little more reality to it, a little more groundedness. And so we developed the style really for that. And Warner Brothers Animation, they did a lot of work. A guy named Rick Morales was in charge of that stuff. And, we basically devised the style, to do that.
Yeah, it's great. I really love it. So what's canon and what's not these days in the DCU? Because obviously, like, we have Weasel, we have aspects of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker as well.
Yeah.
Like, what is your thinking in terms of how that works?
Real simply, nothing for sure is canon unless you see it in Creature Commandos forward for the DCU.
Okay.
Now, in Creature Commandos, you'll hear them talk about things that happened in Suicide Squad or Peacemaker. Well, then those things automatically become canon. The truth is, almost all of Peacemaker is canon, with the exception of Justice League Earth.
You're late, you dickheads.
Which we will, kind of deal with in the next season of Peacemaker.
Oh, okay.
But really, to be totally sure, everything that's purely canon is Creature Commandos through Superman, through Lanterns, Supergirl, Peacemaker season 2.
I mean, does canon matter anymore anyway?
Well, one of the weird things to me is that none of this is real. It may be alarming to people, but none of it is real. It's all just stories that we're telling about characters, and hopefully there's authenticity and truth to those stories because we care about those stories. The characters, the actors, the performers, the animators, they all care about these stories, but it's not real.
Right.
So what's canon can really be whatever you want to be canon. If you want to pretend that, Grillo and Batman go on, adventures together, you can pretend Grillo and Batman go on adventures together. That can be your canon. I know that is your canon.
You just stole my fan fiction. But, all right, so speaking of, this show involves our heroes kicking the crap out of a bunch of incels, and then they also go to a Knights of Columbus and kill a bunch of Nazis. not to spoil too much, but are you worried about alienating a part of your audience?
Yeah, I'm really worried about alienating the Nazi audience. Like that's been we had long talks about this.
There was a lot of.
We thought we would take a stand against Nazism.
Well, I don't know if it's too soon, but we did think that we would do that. We were like, let's be courageous.
What ballsy, heroic people we are that we took a stand against Nazis. That is, so few people are afraid to do that these days.
It's been oh so long since G.I. Robot has sent Nazis back to hell.
How much leeway did you guys feel that you had in adapting the characters? Like I don't know the Creature Commandos comics really, but like Frankenstein, it feels a lot like the Frankenstein from the book.
He's a lot like Frankenstein from the book. Yeah.
So what was your guiding principle in that regard? Because obviously he's a literary character, but then some of these are comic book characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Frankenstein's in the comics, and this Frankenstein is sort of a combination of actually Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Frankenstein from the DC comics, and our Frankenstein.
Yeah, and David Harbour's performance.
And David Harbour, who's like incredible in the role. He's just one of our favorites. I will start with what can be true for this story, and the way I approach the DC universe is one of the things I love about DC. Is that there are all these different manifestations of these same characters in different realities, different canons, really, from the mainstream universe's Batman to Frank Miller's Batman to the Long Halloween's Batman to Absolute Batman. They're all different manifestations of this same character that we get to see from different angles in different ways, and then all the different movie Batman. And so this is really just taking characters in the DCU and seeing all of these characters we love from different angles. And some of them, are very, very, very true to what we have experienced in comic books, and some of them we changed a little bit.
Right, yeah. I think Frankenstein he's a really surprising character in some ways because I guess the version of him in Mary Shelley's book is he's a bit of a sociopath, right? And this one does seem really to track with that, and yet he's one of our hero characters, I guess, so...
Is he?
I don't know. I haven't seen the whole series yet.
He's a monster and he does monstrous things. Yeah. So but I guess he's a hero in that, in the same way that the Godfather's a hero in The Godfather.
Yeah, I mean, he's the protagonist. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's not a great.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
he's not a great guy.
He's not a great
guy, and he is a stalker piece of shit. Like that's he is a stalker.
Yeah, he's kind of irredeemable.
What was the thinking in terms of launching in the universe like already lived in? Like it's clear like all the superheroes are already out there. Like it's not an origin story kind of thing. What was your thinking for that?
For that with the DCU, I think it's really about. I didn't want to have to create a universe where every single story is an origin story. I didn't want to read. Everybody knows where, kids in small villages and very, third world countries know that Superman is a guy from an alien from another planet who was sent here on a rocket ship and was raised and raised by farmers. That is something that people know. Everybody knows Batman's parents were killed outside of a theater, and there was a string of pearls that fell on the ground. They mainly know that fact. But so I think it was about not retelling, but it's about creating a world, a universe, in a way like the Game of Thrones universe, or the Star Wars universe, where there's these fantastical elements. It's a magical realist world where superheroes exist and have existed for a while.
Right.
Some are metahumans, some are costume vigilantes. And so we don't need to see the single story of every single person and where they came from. It's about being in that situation now. And it's something that I don't think we've seen before, really.
Yeah, it's true. So do you know in your head where like the age of superheroes began? Like, was there a Creature Commandos back in like World War II, the way there was in the comics, I believe?
Well, I don't know if there was a Creature Commandos back, but I do know there's been metahumans and superheroes for a long time. But as time has gone on, and I don't think this is giving away too much. There's more of them today than there used to be.
Okay.
And they're more of an issue today than they used to be. So this doesn't really have anything to do with Creature Commandos, but it is kind of where we find ourselves.
Okay.
Getting the super.
Okay. And I suppose it gives you guys the room to like introduce familiar characters who maybe are never going to get their own project, but like no spoilers, but Creature Commandos, I definitely know this. There's a here or there someone pops up.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah. No, we see some major characters.
Some big characters, and as it goes forward, I think we'll see lots of characters cycle through in the Creature Commandos.
Right.
Yeah.
Without the need to explain it away either. Like, not explain it away. Explain this is who this person is or whatever. It's like trusting the audience a little bit in some ways.
Yes.
Okay. The Creature Commandos, it's definitely an adult show, I suppose, in terms of sex and violence. How much was that like your mission statement going in? Like, we're going to do an R-rated cartoon or... I mean, obviously...
It wasn't...
I don't think we went into it really thinking about it as an R-rated cartoon or anything like that. It really was just a story that we wanted to tell as sort of honestly as we could, and that involved a little bit of, violence and a little bit of sex, but, we weren't shooting for any particular level on that.
Yeah, and because it is animated, it doesn't seem quite...
Yes.
It doesn't seem as sexual or as gory as you would if it was in live action. It doesn't, at least to me, it doesn't. But I didn't set out... I just kind of wrote the story that I liked, and then these guys adapted it in a way, but I didn't even think it was necessarily, what one would call adult animation, which is what it's called now. Yeah. When I wrote it, it's just kind of how it ended up being.
Right. We were just on the production side, just trying to be sort of faithful to the scripts that James wrote, and to try not to be too excessive and keep it in the world of the story, so it didn't take you out.
And what was that process like in terms of so for you wrote the 7 episodes, and then like you kind of take it and run with it. Was there a moment where it's like, oh, like this Nazi's like pushing his guts back in his stomach for you, like, oh, maybe that's too much, or like, did
you think I'm going to say too much?
I mean, James obviously saw every frame of the thing, and he had very specific notes throughout, but I don't ever recall there being a question of like too much violence or
never too much.
Yeah.
Give me more guts. Yeah, maybe more Nazi guts.
No, I never said more. I never said more or less. It was just like it just seemed like it was always what was appropriate. It really wasn't about just being shocking ever.
And that honestly was, as we were working on it, we were trying to never be exploitive or anything like that. It was just, we were just trying to service the story.
So how important was it to find, when you were casting the voice actors, how important was it to find actors who could also do live action versions? Because obviously we know Frank is going to be in Superman. Mm-hmm. Is that like a consideration across the board?
Yeah, it was always a consideration. I mean, we always wanted to have somebody that could potentially play the character in live action, and I think that, of all... Listen, there are some side characters, a couple big ones, that are very minimal in the show, who are not going to probably be their voice actors,
right?
Who will probably not play that role. I know that's the case.
Okay.
But for the main Creature Commandos, for the main characters, the idea was always to have those characters played by those actors. Yeah.
And from the start, that was always a consideration.
Okay. Yeah. Again, it's sort of an interesting way of going about it. It's not usually how it's done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, with some characters, it was a little more important. With Frank, it was really important because I knew that Frank was in Superman.
Right.
Rick Flag's in Superman. He's in major role in Peacemaker season 2. So that was a character that was going to be connected throughout. So I needed somebody to do all 3.
So how did you wind up in the opening credits?
Dude, you tell me.
You know what?
I really, that was like a shock.
Well, James had a credit, and we were trying to figure out, like, well, we gave all the characters sort of little moments, animated moments in the credits, and we were like, well, James is kind of a character. We should give him something, and so we all got very excited about it, and we spent a lot of time sort of working on it. And how does he lean back in the chair? Like, what does he do?
It does,
and it was just I don't know. It was.
Aren't I writing on a typewriter?
Yeah, you're writing on a typewriter.
That's not canon.
And then but then when you're done writing, you lean back in the chair, and you got a whole and I don't know if you actually do that. But it seemed like it's
exactly like me.
Exactly like you.
Like slim, and he looks good.
You look fantastic.
He looks pretty good.
It's very good.
Yeah, I was surprised, and my ego was stroked, and then I was also like, oh my God, please don't let people think that I told him to animate.
You did not. I can tell you for the record, he didn't, and we were thrilled to present it, and nervously we presented it a little bit.
Well, I mean, it is the guy who greenlights his own projects.
I know,
right?
yeah.
So, you got to do what you got to do.
I could have nixed it. I didn't.
Is there a dream DC team or character that you guys would like to, just overall, like a different project you guys would love to do in animation for DC?
I mean, I have a billion, but I don't. Do you?
Well, yeah. There's a bunch I would I would love to do. I'm interested in doing a Queen of Fables animated project, so I have real interest in that. I would love to continue to do stuff in the Harleyverse. There's a lot of characters I'd love to get into there. Yeah, there's a bunch. I'd love to do a Hitman comic.
Yeah.
Garth Ennis's Hitman. I think that would be great.
You have too many to name, I guess.
I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. There's
everything.
There's tons of stuff.
Yeah. Is there going to be a season 2?
Well, we don't know if we can get it greenlit, but
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, because what happens with the season 2 is like, would you want to write it, the whole thing again? That's a big undertaking.
That's well, I think that, Dean has done a lot with the characters and he can handle some of that. But I think, I think let's just take it one day at a time and see what happens. But I think we want to see the characters again.
We want to see the characters
in one format or another. You know, that could be other we could do. We should do the movie. So there's other ways of telling that story.
Creature Commandos live action movie,
animated movie. It could be a lot of different things.
Right. Okay.
And you're not doing anything, so
I'm not like just
you got nothing going on,
hanging out. Yeah.
What is the plan in terms of we have Superman, we have Creature Commandos, we have Superman, we have Supergirl. What is the next thing after that? Do you know?
Well, we have our TV projects. So we have it's Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker, Lanterns, Supergirl, and then some things people don't know.
So Lanterns is before Supergirl.
Well, we'll see when it comes out, but they're around the same time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Lanterns is pretty hot right now.
Yeah, Lanterns we're getting ready to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can you tell, not to go too far straight from Creature Commandos, but can you just tell me about the casting of the two Lanterns in terms of the thinking behind those guys? Because like some people were like, oh, Kyle Chandler is too old to be Hal. And it's like,
wait a second. Comic book fans had an opinion on casting? What are you talking about? Listen, I mean, the truth is Chris and Tom and Damon wrote an amazing series, like an incredible series. I'm so excited for people to see this. It's very grounded, very believable, very real, the kind of things that you would never think that would be the truth about a Green Lanterns television series. And very human, adult, and wonderful. And the story that they wrote fit a couple of actors who were of these ages, and so that's who they cast. Those were their choices. I totally backed them up. I love them. Aaron Pierre is somebody who I've liked for a long time. The truth is, he was almost Adam Warlock.
Wow.
He's a great actor, and so I was really excited to see us, using him. And Kyle's just magnificent in the role. So I'm really excited for people to see what those guys have come up with. But everything is to serve the story. The story is always first. The scripts are always first. And we would never be making this show if Chris and the guys hadn't turned in wonderful, beautiful scripts.
Sure. Okay. Well, on that note, thank you, James. Thank you, Gene. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk. Good luck with Creature Commandos and Lanterns and everything else that's coming out.
Thanks a lot.